One of the biggest bottlenecks for smart professionals is not knowledge. It's actually not having enough high trust conversations with the right people.
My whole goal is, why don't I just skip to the front of the line and talk to, as an interview, the exact people I want to work with as my clients or as my customers or as, in our case, our investors.
They need to see who you are. And if you can't properly articulate that and what you're doing, that can be held against you.
They did 260 interviews last year, but that led to 80 new investors on their roster. This whole podcasting thing, they work really, really well.
Welcome back to the 20-Minute Investor, the show for time-strapped professionals building wealth through real estate and small business investing in just 20 minutes a day without quitting their job or sacrificing their family life. One of the biggest bottlenecks for smart professionals is not knowledge. It's actually not having enough high-trust conversations with the right people. Today, we're going to talk about how to fix that. My guest is Dave Dubow, host of the Property Profits Real Estate Podcast, where he interviews active investors scaling to multiple 6 and 7 figures using other people's money. Dave focuses on what's actually working when it comes to raising private capital and building a simple, scalable real estate business. Today, we're going to unpack how to use a structured interview format and the power of podcasts to turn just 20 minutes into a high-trust conversation that can change your business. Dave, welcome to the show.
Aaron, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was great having you on my show a few weeks ago as well.
Absolutely. I love getting to know people this way, and I think that actually is pretty much the exact topic of the episode. From one podcast host to another. I would love to hear just kind of also a little bit about your background as an investor, and then, of course, your podcast as well to start.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So I've been in and around real estate since 2001, so quite a long time. Started with the old, how to get rich quick in real estate, little or no money down, because that's what I had at the time, and did a whole bunch of creative deals, 18 deals in 18 months. So it was kind of my initial claim to fame there. Got in and out of real estate over the years, kind of marketing's kind of my background. So did different things, got into lease options for a while, then moved up into multifamily. All through the whole process, realized I suck as an operator, Aaron, to be perfectly honest with you. So I enjoy the marketing, the lead gen side of things. So for the last dozen years or so, I've been more of a passive investor in real estate and very actively helping people to crack the nut of raising private capital.
It's a really smart reflection to kind of notice some of your, what you, at least you feel are your shortcomings as an operator, because I agree, not everybody is meant to do that. We self-managed our properties, our rental properties when we first started, and it was a great experience to build the skills, but we certainly were not the best at it. Mm-hmm. And now we've come to realize, that's not the highest and best use of our time. So I love that reflection right out of the gate. And then second is, you mentioned your backgrounds in marketing. Did you ever do that as a professional kind of W-2, or what brought you into this sphere in the marketing world?
No, I've been an entrepreneur since 93 and, self-employed, and, you kill what you eat, so to speak, in this line of work. So very quickly became interested in marketing, really enjoyed it. Back in the day, we were doing stuff like direct mail and radio ads and newspaper ads. And that's how old I am. So I've always enjoyed that side of things. I did work with a real estate guru up here in Canada for a number of years, kind of as his marketing guy, but we had kind of a joint venture arrangement in that. So yeah, it's been marketing for a long time, that's for sure.
Yeah, and marketing is a critical part of the value chain in real estate investing. Finding deals, finding investors, finding partners. And then, of course, kind of the unspoken part of marketing is that it's usually the best storyteller that wins, not necessarily the best product. So that skill set is needed in just about every type of real estate. So can you talk about how then you ended up kind of landing on a podcast being your primary marketing vehicle?
Yeah, it was a long roundabout route, that's for sure. So I think it was like 2018. I saw all the cool kids were doing podcasting. I'd already had some experience with interviews and whatnot, so I felt comfortable with it. So I jumped in, and like everybody, I kind of, my thought around podcasting was, hey, I'm going to start this podcast. I'm going to invite the Robert Kiyosakis and the Grant Cardones of the world to be my guests. And of course, they're going to be over the moon excited to be on my show. They're going to want to promote the snot out of their episode. It's going to grow my audience to millions virtually overnight. And, the cash will just kind of keep rolling in. That's not what happened. I wasn't that naive. I didn't think that's exactly what's going to happen, but that was kind of the gist of things. That's how podcasting was sold to people, 8, 10 years ago. So I tried. I started up the show and I invited big wigs and I had a bit of a network, so I was able to get some of them on there. And then I quickly realized, hey, you know what? Just because a big wig is on your show doesn't mean they're going to promote it. They've been on 87 other podcasts. They can't possibly promote every single episode they're on. So that wasn't happening. So the audience growth was kind of slow. The episodes were sporadic. And, I was hoping that I'd grow this audience. I was hoping they'd figure out I was a smart guy. I was hoping they'd reach out to me and we'd not end up doing business. And it was very hit and miss. A lot of hoping, not much happening. And then about 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, I heard a really smart young guy on a podcast talking about what he called, I think, podcast closing. And his whole concept was, and credit where credit's due, Jamie Atkinson, that was the gentleman that I heard this from. His whole concept was, you know what? I'm not worried about the size of my audience, how many thousands of downloads I've got, blah, blah, blah. Those are kind of vanity metrics anyhow. I'm concerned about who I'm talking with directly on my podcast, who I'm interviewing. So my whole goal is, why don't I just skip to the front of the line and talk to, as an interview, the exact people I want to work with as my clients or as my customers or as, in our case, our investors. And that's when the light bulb went off. It's like, boom, that is so smart. So I got a little carried away there and I went from doing like onesie twosie episodes every week or two or whenever I got around to it, to at one point I was doing 27 interviews a week. It does not fit into your 20-minute lifestyle.
Not quite.
That was fast burnout, that's for sure. But it definitely worked like gangbusters for connecting with people in a different way, for getting sales conversations, or in my clients' perspective, investor conversations going in a really interesting, kind of low stress, low salesiness kind of way that was just really conversational and very comfortable. So like I said, for the last coming up on 5 years, the whole podcasting has become personally my main lead generator. And for the last couple of years, we've been working with other folks, setting up their podcast, kind of a turnkey done for you system, helping them to connect with accredited investors this way.
Yeah, I think it's really cool the way that's evolved over time. And agree, I think the default when people started podcasts is I'm just going to book 45-minute interviews and ask people about their story. And there's a lot of interesting nuggets that can come out of that. But if you're a listener and there's 1,000 podcasts doing 45-minute interviews asking people about their story, how are you going to differentiate?
There's hundreds of thousands of them. That's the challenge, Aaron, right? So, yeah,
yes,
you're right on there.
And I'm guilty of that too, because when I first started my show, it was 2.5 years ago now, I did the same thing. I just went out of the gate and started interviewing investors that I knew. And then I eventually did kind of what you're talking about, which is I would reach out to people that I was very curious how they had to, how they actually thought about their own real estate journeys and experience. And I would use it as a way to have a great, really productive conversation and share whatever their core philosophy was with my audience. Mm-hmm. And as a result, honestly, there wasn't a whole lot in it for me other than the ability to have that conversation. We're spending money on the show. I never viewed it as a monetization vehicle. I always viewed it as a vehicle to build relationships and cultivate trust, not only with the guests I'm talking to, but with the audience, whoever I'm blessed enough to have listened to the show. And over time, I think that I realized, I was building relationships. I was swinging, what's the phrase? Playing above my league a little bit, talking to people that I would have had a hard time getting the attention of before,
exactly,
but who were willing to kind of give me a shot and hear me out and have a productive conversation.
The nice thing, Aaron, is you can do both, right? You can create a platform for yourself where you're seen as an expert and as an authority. You can connect with the people that are a little bit out of your league that you might have a hard time talking with otherwise. And you can directly monetize your show by also interviewing the exact kind of person that you want to work with. And that could look several different ways. It could be like somebody that you would like to have as an investor, as an LP, as a a joint venture partner on a deal. It could be potential co-GPs, so other people in the space that where you can combine your forces and do deals together. It could be professionals that you'd like to work with, like securities lawyers or hire fractional CFOs or different kind of folks like that. You can get your foot in the door so much easier, get those conversations going with a podcast.
Absolutely. I also think it's an interesting way to hear, how people truly think. I understand, we're on air, so to speak. It's recorded and it's out in public view, but you get a good sense of how people really feel when they're put on the record, so to
Yeah,
speak, right? If that's their position or their philosophy towards their business and they state it publicly, right? It can show you people's values, which you can learn from. And you can also, as you're saying, kind of, if you're considering maybe working with them or investing with them or getting them to do coaching for you, whatever it is, like you get a much better view into who they are from the seat that we're sitting in, right here as hosts.
absolutely. Yeah, well put. So I think a lot of it has to do with how you do the interview. So we were talking a little bit offline about that. And I think, you know, a really big pet peeve of mine when I'm being interviewed on somebody else's show, present company absolutely excluded, is when the host actually uses the interview with another person to stand on a soapbox and strut their stuff. That is so obnoxious. It's like, and it's only happened 3 or 4 times out of the 250 or plus interviews I've been on as a guest. But there are a few hosts out there that basically are just looking for somebody, another face on the screen to kind of talk to about their own thing. So that's a big mistake. I think when you're bringing on a guest, just like you're doing, your number one job is let's make your guest look good, feel good, and sound good. It really should be all about the guest and featuring them. Obviously, you want to be providing value for your audience as well. That goes without saying. But it's not like when I'm interviewing somebody, like we just did a few weeks ago, it's not all about me trying to show how smart I am. It really is all about me trying to put you on the pedestal, put you on the platform, and let you shine and help you to shine. And the nice thing is, you've probably seen this because you've done hundreds of interviews as well, Aaron, is that quite a few of your guests aren't very polished on podcasts. Like a lot of them have never been interviewed before. So like this is a big deal. They're not used to public speaking. They're feeling nervous and jittery. So if you can put them at ease and just through your questions and your rapport, really kind of make them feel good, then that's such a massive shortcut to them feeling like you know them, because you do, you just interview them. And that's going to create that like and trust factor on their part as well.
100%. And ultimately, you're adding value to them. And if it's someone who you admire or that you're trying to build a relationship with, and you are, let's say, walking the hallways of BPCon and, bump into them and you want 5 minutes of their time, it's pretty hard to find a way to add meaningful value to them if you're a stranger, let's
Yeah.
say. And, in this example, I'm talking about maybe somebody who has a bit of a following or that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get time with. But if they come on your show and if you're promoting it and you're, as you say, kind of elevating them and allowing the best parts of their stories to shine and provide value for your own audience, it is a value add to them. It's something that they can use in different ways. And I know I saw you do this, and it's something I do too. For our guests, when we publish the episode, we'll reach out to them and give them a couple of different, the raw files for recording and say, chop this up however you need and use it as an asset, right? And so that exchange of value, especially for a lot of people that feel like, I know a lot of people get imposter syndrome, especially earlier on when they feel like they don't have anything to add. You can, especially if you're willing to grow into being a host and kind of doing what it takes, which I want that to be our next topic, by the way, that you really can create value. But I think a lot of people run into the problem of, hey, it's really hard to start a podcast, or I don't have time, it's too intense. And I have that same problem too. And for the most part, I've gotten into a pretty streamlined point where I have a VA that helps me with editing, and my main job is to interview the guests, prepare, and show up and conduct a good experience. But I'm curious, what you might say to somebody who might be, let's call them podcast curious, but is constrained by the idea that it would take too much time.
Well, if they try to do it themselves, they will. I mean, you know the stats as well as I do, Aaron. I think it's, well, maybe I don't know the stats. So I think it's like 70% of podcasts fizzle out after episode 7 or 80%, whatever. It's a huge majority of podcasts never make it to episode 10.
Yeah.
And that's for several reasons. I think the number one reason is it's so damn much work trying to do all of this by yourself that people fry out very quickly. After you learn a whole new skill set, not only have to figure out how to set up their podcast and get everything going, but then lights, camera, action, recording, editing, uploading, scheduling, content creation, blah, blah, blah. There's so much involved if you're doing it right that they quickly say, hey, this ain't much fun. Plus, they haven't figured out how to monetize their podcast. Plus, they haven't grown an audience of thousands after their first couple of episodes, surprise. So they lose interest very quickly and quit. So back to your point, maybe to answer your question. The big challenge is, right, they try to do it themselves. So if they're podcast curious, seriously look at doing something like what Aaron's done, which is find a VA or find a service that can run this, set this up and run this for you. So you can just kind of show up and be the host with the most, and the other stuff gets taken care of for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's as steep a hill to climb as people think, and especially in the age of AI, there are, you can combine having somebody, a person helping you, and also leverage a lot of tools. Like we're recording inside of a podcast studio software that can help create clips and use AI to clean up transcripts and create social posts, and a lot of it can be streamlined much more than people probably realize until you just spend a few minutes doing the research. And I'm sure Dave or myself would be happy to hear from you if anybody has questions on how to start a podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I think probably the most important thing, I mean, that's all logistical stuff, Aaron, and that can be dialed in. But I think really, if you're going to start a podcast, you have to be very conscious about what the heck do you want to accomplish? What are your goals through your podcast? If it's just to kind of have fun and, interview a few buddies here and there, and then, just keep it simple. Just do it on Zoom or Riverside or whatever and put it up on YouTube and call it a day kind of thing. But if you're serious about monetizing this to help grow your business one way or the other, then have very specific goals in mind. Like, what do you want to do? And don't just do it because everybody else seems to be doing it, right? So go in with a specific goals, an outcome in mind. And keep in mind, like, if the outcome is, hey, I want to become the next Joe Rogan and have millions and millions of downloads and followers and subscribers, good luck. You can do it. I don't know how to do it. I haven't accomplished that. That hasn't been my goal. But I think if you want to be strategic about it, really focus on who do I want to interview? Who do I want to have as my audience? How do I want to leverage those relationships I'm creating with the people that I'm interviewing? How do I want to leverage this platform I've just created? So there's a whole bunch of different things you can do. And I'm sure you've done one or many of these. So what I love about podcasts, Aaron, is number one, it's a great way to connect with those people, like you said, that are a notch or two up that you wouldn't be able to connect with otherwise. So you can meet hard to meet people this way. Number two, it's a great way to meet people that you want to do business with directly. That's what I do primarily on my podcast. Number three, it's a great way to meet people that you could do some sort of a cross promotion with. So maybe you can promote them to your followers. They can promote you and your services to their followers. It's fantastic for that. It's a great way for creating content for yourself and visibility for yourself. You can always do a standalone episode where you are the host and the guest, right? So you're just talking about your specialty. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes, it doesn't have to be half an hour, it can be 5-10 minutes. That's all good. And then, like you mentioned, there's all sorts of tools out there. Take it and spin that content out, and now you never have to worry about social media content again.
100%. I also think you're building a library of assets. I truly view the interviews and the episodes as assets. It's a collection of your thoughts. It's a collection of your experiences. It's a collection of the representation of the relationships that you're building. And especially in the age of AI, I've now really enjoyed taking the transcripts from all these interviews and pulling them in. And I use, ChatGPT, and I have a running log, and I get to interface with these people. Even though I was there in the seat during the interview, I get to actually learn again, right? By going back and referencing this material and maybe even spinning it a little bit and trying to, test different ideas with those same philosophies. So I just think you're building a ton of great information and content for yourself to learn while also providing that value back to an audience and then hopefully providing value to the guests. So in theory, if done right, and to your point, if you have a strong purpose behind why you're doing it, it can be a three-way win, especially for interviews with people that you're really targeting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's why I'm such a fan of podcasting. That's why I think I'm getting close to 2,000 episodes now. I really enjoy it. It's very valuable.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. A lot of people kind of question the underlying intention of podcasts. A lot of people have asked me why, and I didn't have a great answer for that when I started. I was kind of your previous answer kind of called out how I used to be too, which I started because I wanted to have fun and have good conversations. I wanted to engage and be able to ask questions. I planned to grow the show, but over time, what I learned was and I think you said this earlier on, it wasn't that I wanted as many views and downloads as possible. It was a quality thing. And when I started looking at some of the metrics, I became very grateful because I realized that even though my audience was, still in the double digits per episode, it had a very high retention. The average person listened to episodes for 30 plus minutes. And to me, that was a big signal and a validation that, okay, there's some type of value in here that people are continuing to come back and willing to listen. And so that gave me the fuel to continue to have these conversations, continue to make the investments. It is out of pocket expense, but you're building goodwill and trust over a long period of time. And
I think I might have to take a few lessons from you because when I crunched the numbers a few years ago, we found that a big chunk of our listeners were dropping off after 22 to 25 minutes. So that's why I just kind of rig-jigged my whole show and made it 20 minutes max.
Yeah.
Kept them short and sweet.
Well, I think attention is becoming, one of the most scarce resources on the planet, and especially in AI, now that there was already a ton of content, written, audio, visual, before generative AI came out, and now it's very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think people safeguard their attention more than they did even a few years ago, just because they're over inundated, and at some point people want to know, they want you to cut to the chase, and I think that's a skill that I've been able to work on as a host. And when I go back and listen to some of the first episodes, I see the progression. And you mentioned public speaking earlier. That was another benefit for me, is that I wanted to become more comfortable in my own skin speaking and being articulate and telling stories. And that's something that I think is also underrated as an investor, because a lot of people, especially if you're doing it on the side, you think that, your agent will deal with this, your lender will deal with that, but there will come a day when you probably have to raise outside money, or you have to build a relationship with a commercial banker or someone who they need to see who you are. And if you can't properly articulate that and what you're doing, that can, be held against you. And so this is another platform to kind of build that skill. And also just learning from other people. When you hear other people that are very articulate and polished tell their stories, you begin to absorb some of that behavior too, so that you can learn from it. So I'm curious, was public speaking ever kind of one of the primary objectives for you?
No, I've been public speaking for decades now. So yeah, that wasn't the purpose for me.
Fair. Well, I just started a couple of years ago, so it's been a good
I didn't say I'm any good at it. I've just been doing it for a long time. That's all.
Absolutely. So I think in the spirit of, as you said, not keeping things too long, one thing that we talked about at the beginning is the kind of the theme of the show was how to build trust in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And, you shortened your episodes to 20 minutes. You already shared that one of your goals was to talk to the type of people that you would want to work with. So in that tiny container of time, what is your approach? And you mentioned kind of elevating the guests and making them feel special, but what are some of the secret, tricks that you have for building that trust in a short period of time?
Yeah, good question. So the first thing is I divide my interview into 3 parts: pre-recording, the interview itself, and then the post-interview. So pre-interview, interview, post-interview, right? The pre-interview is you get the other person, shows up on Zoom or Riverside, you say hi, you break the ice, and you quickly figure out, has this person ever been on a show before? Have they ever been interviewed? If they haven't, then put them at ease, calm them down a little bit, tell them you're going to take it easy on them. Just, break the ice kind of thing, create a little bit of rapport there. Then we jump in, and the interviews are very very, at this point, they're kind of loosey goosey. I don't send people a whole bunch of questions ahead of time. I know what I want to ask people, but when we're working with clients, we have a very structured set of questions that we have them ask, a choreography, if you would, that just naturally kind of elicits the best from their guests. So we want to, break the ice on the interview. We want to let them tell us a little bit about themselves and their background, what their, keys to success are, what some of the challenges have been that they've overcome. Try to get them to share some interesting stories about their life or their work or what have you. Get them to give the audience some suggestions, some tips on how the audience might get better at whatever their secret sauce is. So really trying to provide value from the audience and elicit some really good content from your guest as well. And then depending on what your end goal is, like what you're trying to do. So for example, Aaron, let's say you were interviewing somebody and you're looking to raise some capital and you're looking to kind of boost up your Rolodex of investor prospects, and you've got somebody good that's on your call. You might bring the questioning a little bit towards what their thoughts are about creating income outside of work, what their thoughts are about creating income outside of their business, or, passive income. You might not use that term because it's overused, but creating additional sources of revenue for themselves and their family. So in the future, when they don't want to be working so hard, they've still got the same or even better income coming in. So just without preaching, without saying, hey, you should be investing in real estate, just kind of opening it up and seeing what, if anything, they're doing. And then you wrap things up. Hey, what are your exciting plans for the rest of the year? If people want to find out more about you and connect, where should they go? So that's kind of wrapping up the interview. And then the magic also happens after the interview. So you stop the recording. You're still on the platform with the other person. If it's their first interview, you give them a little pat on the back, say, hey, good job, Aaron. You did an awesome job there, buddy. You should be doing this more often. Here's what's going to happen next. Do a little bit of housekeeping, whatever that looks like for you. And then the way that we monetize these direct interviews is we circle back. And in this example, I'd say something like this. Well, hey, Aaron, congratulations on your business. Sounds like things are going really well. Let's say you're a chiropractor or something like that. Now, a lot of busy professionals in your position, you mentioned that you're starting to do some investing outside of your business, but you're relying on a financial planner. Let me ask you a question. How do you feel about the kind of returns that you're getting with those investments, the security and the stability of that? Is that something that you're 100% happy with, or is there maybe a little room for improvement? What's the other person probably going to say?
Not quite as satisfied as they want to be.
There's always room for improvement, right? That's what they're going to say. Then you circle back. Oh, cool. Hey, Aaron, we're doing something really interesting with some other busy professionals just like you in alternative investing in multifamily or whatever your thing is. And we're able to get them very steady, secure, double-digit returns on their money. And at the same time, quite often, we're able to save them a ton on their taxes as well. Is that something you might be interested in taking a look at?
I think so.
So very soft, like it's not a high pressure thing. Okay, cool. Well, let's just book in a quick little follow-up conversation. It'll take about 20 minutes. How does tomorrow at 2 o'clock look for you? Boom, book them in right away. Tip here, within 72 hours to have a follow-up conversation about whatever it is that you do. So that's the hook. You really want to hook them, create some curiosity there. And then you do that's what would be your sales presentation, right? So depending on what you're doing, if you're looking to raise capital, I highly recommend you do not go for the check immediately. It's too much, too fast. But show the person who you are, what you do, kind of explain how you do it, show them an example of a good deal, and then say, hey, Aaron, at the moment, we don't have any opportunities available, but we always have interesting deals coming across my desk. If I find one that might be up your alley, would you like to have first dibs on it? Would you like to look at it first? No commitment, no, don't have to sign up for anything. Yep, okay, cool. Well, let's do this. Let's get you on our VIP investor list, and then that way, when we've got a deal that might be up your alley, I'll tell you about it first. Sound good? And then you get a warm commitment from that person.
That was a whole masterclass in a podcast funnel. I love it. It's very uncomfortable for a lot of people to try and improvise something like that. But when you turn it into a system like what you described, which again is an exchange of value, you're not asking or begging for something. You're offering and positioning a potential opportunity. Like you said in that example, you didn't even have a live opportunity that you're raising for. You're just building a relationship and building trust. And then you're giving them access to a future opportunity in that example.
Even if
But
you do have a live one, don't pitch that to them at this moment. It's too much too fast. Like, you got to take it slow. It's like courting someone, or it's like, you don't want to go too fast.
just like attention is a currency, so is trust, right? And I'm sure it can be burned a lot faster than it can be built.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Yeah. So this can work really well. In fact, we got one of our clients. We got them quite a few interviews. They did 260 interviews last year, but that led to 80 new investors on their roster. So this whole podcasting thing can work really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really, I was grateful when I came across your show and saw kind of some, because again, as a maybe more junior podcaster and someone who's built and kind of refined my own process over time, I really felt like it was a red carpet experience going on your show. And it's not like you were sitting there improvising and making it up over time. You had built a system that was meant to help the guests have a great experience. And then for all the things you just mentioned, build some trust and a relationship with them. And go figure, here we are, just a few weeks later having another conversation. And, now we know each other and we've got a glimpse into each other's minds. And there's just, a really cool magic that can happen when you put yourself out there like that.
Well, that's the other big advantage to podcasting, Aaron. I forgot to mention this one. If you want to be on other people's podcasts, the best shortcut is to invite podcast hosts to be guests on yours first. Creates that reciprocity. This is one of the ways I've been interviewed over 200 times over the last few years is, I also interview other podcast hosts like yourself, and this is a great way to kind of get your foot in the door that way as well.
100%. And if the host has been on 100 or 200 other interviews, try and think of some novel questions maybe that they go beyond just the same stuff that they've said 100 times over, because those people, even as interesting as their stories may be, they get tired answering the same questions over and over again.
Yeah, well put.
Awesome. Well, I've really appreciated all this information. I know not everyone listening to this might be wanting to start a podcast, but hopefully this piqued people's interest as to some of the different ways that podcasts can be valuable as part of your journey. It does not take as much time as you think. And there are many tools and people out there that can help you get started for not that much money and probably help you build a great system like what Dave's built. So Dave, if people want to get in touch with you or follow along, what's the best way to do so?
Just check out my website, resultsenterprises.com. That'll give you a little information about what we do and how we do it. If you're interested, you can easily book a call.
Awesome. And maybe one day one of the listeners will be on your show, Dave. Hopefully we'll hook that up too.
That sounds great. Thanks, Aaron.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.